a warm hello to everyone because you're so awesome. Today we're going to make this cute little twisted gatefold card, which I'm sure you're going to love. It's a quick, simple way to create a unique little card to send someone you care about, and it's a great way to use up your designer series paper scraps because you really don't need big pieces of anything. So we are going to get started, and I hope you can follow along. So today we're using the Circle Sayings stamp set and the coordinating 2 3/8 inch circle punch. You can buy this as a bundle. This group of stamps is perfect because you can create any of these arched pieces into a circle. There's lots of great sayings and you can use it for so many different occasions. So it's a super easy set of stamps to play with. There's not a ton of coloring, and you don't even need to color if you don't want to. So if you're someone who wants to just pop out a quick card and not spend a whole lot of time, this is a great stamp set to use. So here's how you make it. First, we're going to get our paper cutter and we're going to cut our card in Calypso Coral, and it's going to be, the base is going to be 4 1/4 by 7 1/2. So I like to cut it on the long side because I can get more use out of the paper that way. You know, we're always trying to use our paper in a way that we don't waste, so we actually have this as extra, which is plenty to make another card. And then we're going to pull out the arm and cut this 7 1/2 inches long. So we have this. I'm going to close this arm back up because we don't need it now. And now we're going to do some scoring. So we're going to score this on the long side. We're going to score it at 2 1/2 inches and 5 inches. Okay, and then, get my scraps out of the way, we're going to do some slanted scoring. So in order to do that, I find it easiest to take my pencil and kind of mark my score line here and then mark my score line up here because it is hard to see when you put it on the cutter. And I like to use my paper cutter to do my scoring. So once you have those lines drawn, so you can see the scoring directions are going to be this way and this way. So we're going to slant them both in the same direction. So starting with this side, I'm going to line up the corner of the paper to my little tick mark, which is where the end of the 2 1/2 inch score line is. And then I'm going to put my scoring tool kind of right in the middle. I don't want to crease up my edges, and so I'm just going to run it on there. So that one's done. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to line up my little hash line and my corner down here as perfect as I can get it. All right, and then I'm going to score it. Super simple. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment and show you how I fold it. So you have your 2 score lines and then you have your 2 diagonal score lines. So I'm going to fold the first one in and the next one out like that. And I don't use my bone folder until I get all my folding done because I want to make sure everything's lined up crisply in case I have to fix it. So when you line them up, they should be together side by side. So that looks good. It's nice and even. So I'm going to get my bone folder now and go ahead and tighten up the creases. All right, so that's all there is for the card base. We're going to set that aside, and then I'm going to get my designer series paper, and I'm going to use this piece of leftover designer series paper. This comes from, I don't even remember what it's called. It's retired. It's a pattern set. So this is a great little card to use on leftover cardstock that you might have because you just need really small pieces of it. This happens to be a 6x6. So the designer series paper is going to be 2 1/4 by 3 7/8, and you're going to cut 2 of them. So you can cut everything the same design, which is what I'm doing right now, or you can pick two coordinating designs and cut one in one design and one in the other, so that you have two different kinds of designs on the paper that coordinate together. So you can do it that way as well. So I'm going to cut, what I like to do is cut the 3 7/8. So that way I can just set this aside for something else. And then I'm going to cut 2 1/4 and 2 1/4, because I'm doing 2 of these. And again, if you choose, you could do one in one piece of paper and one in a totally different designer series paper. Or you could even use cardstock if you wanted to. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to cut these on the diagonal, but we're going to do them in opposites. So one I'm going to cut this way, and one I'm going to cut this way. And you'll see why in a moment. So I'm going to just put my corners down as close to the middle as possible. And then I put my cutter in the middle, because if you try to cut it from here or here, it's going to crinkle up the edge. So I just start in the middle and do it that way. So you get a nice little crisp cut. So we cut that one this direction, so we're going to cut this one in the opposite direction. Like so. Put that down, make sure I'm right lined up. That's what's great about this cutter, is you can see exactly where your blade's going to go. Okay, so that's that. And then the last piece that we need a piece of 2 1/4 by 4 inches, which is going to be for our inside. And I have a piece of scrap here that I think will work. So I'm going to cut it at 4 inches and 2 1/4. This is going to be for the inside of the card. Okay, so that's our inside, and these are our pieces, and then the front will just be scraps. So we're done with our cutter for now. Let's put that aside. So to assemble the outside edges, you're basically going to match all these pieces up where they fit. They're only going to fit one way. So it's going to go like that. Really easy. So I just turn these over. Now, if you wanted to do 2 different designs, you could certainly do that. I would change up, maybe use the lavender paper, and you could do something like that. So you can have fun with this and make it any way you want. I'm just using the same paper today, and I like to use liquid glue for this, because I like to be able to have that little bit of time to manipulate it and get it exactly where I want. Plus, it's easier to get in the edges of these triangular pieces with liquid glue. So I just use a light little layer. I just do all 4 at once. And this one. This card comes together so quickly. Okay, close that up. So now I'm just going to pick one up and kind of figure out where it's going to go. This one happens to fit here. So I'm going to put it on there. Oh, look at that mess I made. Just wipe that off. The great thing about liquid glue, or really any adhesive, is get yourself one of these little erasers, and you can just rub on any glue overage you get, and it takes that sticky right off the paper, so you don't have to worry about it. Cleans it right up. All right, because I get messy with the liquid glue. All right, now we're going to put this one here. Again, this is why I like to use the liquid glue, because I have a moment to move it around a little bit and get it exactly where I want it. And then the next piece is, you just kind of have to move it around and figure out where the pieces go. Okay, that looks good. And it, once you hold it for a couple of seconds, it's nice and firmly placed on there, so you don't have to worry about waiting for it to dry. It dries pretty quick. And then the last piece, I'm trying not to touch the glue, is right here. Again, if you kind of get it where you think it goes, then you can kind of squish it around until it's perfect for you. Okay, so those are all put down. See how nice that looks? Super easy. The colors are all coordinated. It looks very nice. So now we're going to do some stamping. So I've decided to make this one a birthday card. And I went ahead, I used this Celebrate stamp. I stamped that in the Calypso Coral. I went ahead and did that ahead of time because you know how to cut out a circle. So the punch is 2 3/8. On this particular card, I decided to use a smaller circle die, but most of my other cards, I went ahead and just used the punch. The punch is made to work with all of these circular designs. This one was used using the punch. I just punched it out, and then I layered a scalloped circle that was slightly bigger under it. So it's very versatile. And having this punch, you can use it for a million different things with your other projects, but this also keeps the card very quick if you want a quick card to get out to someone, especially if you forget a birthday and you've got to get that card in the mail. This is a great way to do it. All right, so then I decided to use this cupcake, but I'm going to stamp it on white paper and then cut it out and then pop it up so it's on dimensionals to kind of raise it up from the base. So instead of putting the cupcake on here directly and coloring it in, I think I'm going to go ahead and put it on a piece of paper and cut it out and make it pop a little. You can do it either way, looks great. I just decided to have a little fun and do it this way. And I have another one that I stamped directly on the circle, and I'll show you that one at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and just stamp this down on my scrap. I like to stamp off my stamps a little bit so they don't muddy up my cleaner so much. Okay, now I brought out some alcohol-based markers. I'm gonna do the cupcake in yellow. This is Daffodil Delight because for some reason I am missing my crushed curry marker. So I'm going to use Daffodil Delight, which works just as well. And then I'm going to do my paper, my cupcake paper, in the light pecan pie, and I think I'm going to use the darker one for the base of the cupcake so it looks sort of like a chocolate cupcake. These markers are fabulous if you haven't used them. I used to have all of the Stampin' Up! Markers and pencils, and ever since these came out, I have just focused really on just using these because they're so versatile. You don't necessarily need all the other toys, and since, as you know, I live in an RV and travel full-time, I don't have the space to have every single Stampin' Up! Product, although I would love to have them and I used to have them. It's just not feasible in an RV. So I found that having these markers allows me to have all the versatility of coloring without having to have all the sets of different markers and pens and chalks and pencils and everything else that Stampin' Up! Lovingly offers that color coordinates with everything. I just don't have the space. So this works out really well. So to color these, this is the lighter crumb cake, or pecan, what is this? Pecan pie. This is a new color, one of the new colors from Stampin' Up! So I'm a little rusty on the names sometimes. I want to call it crumb cake because I've used crumb cake so many times. That's one of my most used colors, so I tend to get it mixed up. Okay. The nice thing about the alcohol-based markers is they don't leave streaks like typical markers do when you color on them, so it makes you look like you can color like a pro. I'm going to use the darker one here because I want it to look more like a chocolate cupcake. Actually, my favorite flavor is red velvet. I love red velvet if it's a good recipe. But I also love chocolate. Okay, so that's that. And then once the yellow is a little bit dry, I'm going to go over it with some of the darker shade. As you know, the alcohol-based markers come in a light shade and a dark shade, and this allows you to give your coloring some dimension. So I'm just going to put in some darker places, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the cupcake wrapper. And the markers have a thin tip and a brush tip, so you can kind of decide which one works better for what you're coloring. If you're coloring something that has a lot of detail, you want to use this finer tip. The great thing is you just kind of just do whatever. It's your art project, right? So you just color it however you think looks best. And then once the darker color's dry, I just lightly go over it again with the lighter color, which blends the two together. So you don't have any weird lines, but you still get the depth of the darker color on there. So I love how these markers work together. And then here's the lighter pecan pie. And I'm just gonna lightly go back over all of that, and it dries. The alcohol dries really quick. And like I said, you won't get all the little streaks and stuff once it's dry. So there's my little lemon cupcake, my lemon frosting on my chocolate cupcake. I love it. You could also go in with there's a Stampin' Blends marker that is basically, it looks like a white marker, but it's clear and it takes some of the color out. You could go in there and do that too and give it some more texture. But what I like to do is take my Wink of Stella and go over the icing with that, and it adds a little bit of a shimmer. So the cupcake looks like it has a shimmery, shiny frosting, which, I mean, who wouldn't love getting a cupcake that's got some shimmer in it, right? So I just go over that a little bit, and that's it. And then once that's dry, you just get your scissors out. Now when I cut, I tend to move my paper and keep my scissors as still as possible. It just helps me kind of keep from having bumpy lines. If you need to, sometimes I will just cut away the big part of the paper. But yeah, you just follow the detour, leave a little bit around the edges, and just keep cutting. And I just turn my paper as I'm going and keep my scissors relatively still. Okay. And I try not to have any sharp edges. So there we go. So now I've got my little cupcake, and I'm going to get my dimensionals. And my take your pick tool. I'm going to put a few little dimensionals on the back of this. And then figure out how I want my words to be. I'm going to do them this way and just pop that down. Look how cute that is. And then I cut this circle out that's slightly bigger with a scalloped circle die. So I'm going to layer that on there. It coordinates perfectly with the paper that I used, because that is one of the magical things about Stampin' Up, is they do such a great job at coordinating everything. So I'm just using a little liquid glue again, so that way I can make sure if I need to move it around, I can. And get that as close to the center as I can. And just hold it for a second. I'm going to set that aside to dry for a moment. And this is going to be a birthday card, so I think it needs to have a happy birthday. And I think I'm going to do it in the Calypso Coral so that everything continues to go together really nicely. So I'm going to ink that up and stamp this in the middle. Sorry, I'm going to have to put my head down for a second. Okay, there you go. So everything will match. Clean that off, move these out of the way. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our base that we have, and this is going to go on the inside. Just going to keep using my liquid glue because it is out. Now when you glue this down, you want to make sure it doesn't really matter which is the up and which is the down, but I kind of like to kind of look at it before I put that on there. Okay, that is good. And one thing I forgot to do is erase my little lines. Remember the little tick lines that we made when we were scoring? You just use a eraser and take that right off. Okay, so that is done. Now we're going to do the inside. So the way this opens is you're going to glue this on just half. You don't want glue to be anywhere on this panel. You just want it to be on this panel, or this, whichever panel you want it to open on, so that when you open it, it opens like that. So I'm only going to be gluing right here. So I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to take a look at it one more time. And if it helps, I've actually before kind of made little tick marks too, but I'll just kind of put my finger where I think I want the glue to be, so I know it's going to be right there. So I'll go ahead and put a little glue down. You could also use a dimensional. You could use liquid, you could use regular adhesive. I like to use this. It works good for me. All right, and then I close the card up and kind of put this in place the way I want it, move it a little bit if I need to, and then I kind of open it up, make sure like I had a little tiny smidge of glue here, just wipe that off. So I'm going to hold that in place for a second. This card is so quick and easy to make. And what I love about it, it fits in a regular envelope, so you can decorate your envelope as well. But it's just unique. It's a unique, happy little card. It will stand up. But I like kind of the wow factor of getting a card that's just a design you wouldn't normally see. So that is done. I think the only thing we have left to do, if I can figure out where I put them, is add a few little embellishments. So I grabbed these. These are the adhesive back solid gems, and they actually match some of the new designer series papers. And I'm going to use the yellow and put a few on there. So I'll put one here, and I'm going to put them on these little panels. Come here. Okay, here we go. So there's our card. Super simple, only a few little cutting instructions. So this is the one we just made. Get some space here. So this is the one we just made, which says happy birthday. A little while ago I made this one from the same set. It says thinking of you. I used some old retired designer series paper that I thought really popped with the blue and the yellow. I stamped this same sun. I only inked up the top part and stamped off on the corner of the paper and colored it in with a marker. And then I added some Wink of Stella to the sun rays and a little bit to the frothy part of the waves. So that came out really cute, and there's plenty of room for a little message. So that's the second card. This one has a fun little aquatic design. It's got the all of the little sea life here, and what I did was stamped it this direction and then flipped it around and stamped it this direction. So I stamped it twice to make a circle, added warm hello, and then I added Wink of Stella because shells, you know, it makes the shells look a little wet and sparkly. And then I used some paper from some designer series paper that's been retired that has a water theme, so I kind of kept pulling in that water theme of colors, and it says warm hello because you're awesome. So this would be great for a thank you card or birthday or whatever. And then here's one I did that says sending you a smile because you're awesome. Again, this time I only stamped once, but I could have made this a complete circle by stamping it twice. I use the Petal Park designer series paper and these cute little brass butterflies that you know I'm obsessed with. And then I just stamped a little corner of the flowers up here. And then I used my markers I stamped in Night of Navy, but then I used my markers to pull in the balmy blue by using the balmy blue marker, and then I added some green for the leaves. So this one's really fun. And then this was the original cupcake that I made earlier, and you can see the difference. I just used the punch to cut out the circle. This one I went ahead and just colored the cupcake directly rather than cut it out and put it on top. So just a slightly different look, but they both look really cute. So I hope you like this card, and I hope you find this fun fold easy to make and a quick way to let someone know you're thinking about them, and a great way to use up your paper scraps and designer series papers to make room for the new stuff that's in the new annual catalog. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I will be posting some more videos soon. My website is getting ready to go live, so my blog pages will be on there, and I'll have some fun, exciting things on there for you as well. So I hope you have a great day. I hope you're able to give someone a warm hello today and enjoy the rest of your time. This is Jill from The Wandering Stamper. Have a great day.